Re tswela jalo le thulaganya ya rena nako ke yona go ramogela baeng ba rena ba bobedi mo mosong wa gompieko mme ka re setse re tlhalositse rena le baeng hela ba batswang yalo ka ko SADC mo mosong wa gompieko ke na yalo le bone ba ileng gore ke bone ba ne ba tshwere yalo dipatlisiso re bua ka yona the 2020 synthesis report on the state of food and nutrition security and vulnerability in Southern Africa. Mo mosong wa gompieko go tshwara puisano yena ke nagana le ene Red Clement Kalonga ene ele the technical services manager ona yalo le ene Domingos Gove ele ene the director of food agriculture and natural resources within SADC. Mo mosong wa gompieko re simolla hela lo puisano ya rena ka go ba amogela mo thulaganyong ya rena mo mosong wa gompieko. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
After that one twister. But let's get into our conversation for this morning. We'll start with you, Mr. Kalonga, talking about the findings of this report. What did you find in relation to food vulnerability within the region?
Thank you. This report is an annual report, and the idea is that we want to gauge the status of vulnerability. And there are many vulnerabilities in the region, but one most important one is to do with food nutrition security. And so we do this report normally within the first weeks of July in preparation of our SADC ministers meeting that happens in August, and which is followed up by summit at the meeting of heads of state. So the current report for 2020 is very important because also, you know, this is a year we are facing COVID. And so the findings are that around 44.8 million people will be facing food insecurity in this region, which is quite a high figure compared to last year, which was 41 million. And even during 2016-17, when we had El Nino, we had about 38 million people that were facing food insecurity in that particular year. So it's a quite huge number in terms of so many people are going to be not able to find means to feed themselves if there is no intervention from government and other well-wishers. The other key finding in the report is about the number of stunted children in the region, which has actually gone up to about 8.7 million. Now, stunting is when a child is not at the height that they should be for that age, and it has also implications on their ability to learn and the potential that they will have. But also, there's been an increase in acute malnutrition, which is a composite assessment of height and weight of children, which has been an increase from last year of 25%. So there's about 8.4 million children that are suffering of that are in a situation of acute malnutrition, which is quite also worrying in terms of the potential of children. But also you might wish to know that there's not always bad. There's a cereal surplus. We've produced more maize as a staple in the region than last year, with only about 4.5 metric tons, which is the positive side of the story. At least nothing else is but those are the key findings.
Just to interject, all the figures that you are actually saying out are showing an increase, especially on the negative side when you're looking at food security within nutrition. The region. And when you're looking at food production, we are finding that the region is trying to find measures to improve food production. How does this then come to be when we see such an increase in numbers?
Yes, you may wish to relate to the whole conceptual understanding of food security. There's production, which is about availability. A household has produced food. But that alone does not allow food security. But there's also access. So people in urban areas, in cities, don't produce food. They don't have maize gardens, but they have to be able to have the means to buy. So what we're reading from this report is that although production overall in the region has been maintained and there's a surplus, of course within that you know that there's a deficit in Zimbabwe and other countries. But then most of the people that use money to buy food to have their food security have been affected because of the challenges that the region is facing. And as such, the buying power of households to buy food has reduced, and which has actually worsened in terms of the numbers that I have now. And COVID, in part, has contributed because of loss of incomes, reduced remittances to rural areas and to families. So the ability now to access the food is what the report has identified that is a challenge, and that's why it has now contributed to the higher numbers of food insecure populations in the region. Yeah.
Director, I want us to talk about the implications of these findings. What does that then mean to the region in terms of food security, in terms of the vulnerability state that the region is in?
Yeah, I mean, it is challenging considering the situation that we are going through, the COVID situation. As my colleague has indicated, the urban population is the one that is being hit hardly. The rural population, it has some food stocks so far, but it's a situation that they will be facing challenges in the long run, probably from November to January. In terms of the recommendations that we are proposing for the member states to consider, is that they have to urgently address the social protection programs so that they can reach the most vulnerable people. They have also to avoid the disruption of food supplies and farming operations because of closing of borders and so forth. And there's one element that is really very important, which is school feeding programs. That is one aspect that in our region contributes significantly to secure food and nutrition security. So we are recommending them to expand the school feeding program if it's possible. In case of lockdowns, they eventually consider taking home rations or even cash-based transfers and so forth. The fourth aspect that we are recommending for the member states is to address the domestic violence. That is one of the consequences of shortage of food. And in fact, when you have domestic violence, the family is disrupted and the impacts are even higher. So this is an aspect that we recommend the member states to always take into consideration when they are addressing this situation of food insecurity. These are the aspects that we are recommending for the member states to consider in short term. But in the medium and long term, we are encouraging the member states to really recommit to the existing strategies. At the regional level, we have the regional agriculture policy. At the continental level, we have the CADA process and Malabo declaration process. And at the national level, we have the National Agriculture Investment Plan. And in relation to the small-scale farmers, for example, in the pillar of increasing productivity, we are encouraging the member states to look into the small dams, small irrigation schemes, so that the communities are able to cope with the drought, because the drought is the main root cause for the situation that we are having. But also in terms of nutritional aspects, we're encouraging the member states to engage with smallholders to consider does the crop diversification, including using the indigenous food that we normally forget, and we go to the junk food, which is not nutritious. And the aspects also of accessing to markets for agriculture products for smallholder farmers that may include the roads improvement, and also having incentives for the input suppliers to be closer to the smallholder farmers.
Mr. Kalunga, I want us to talk about countries, especially like Botswana, that rely a lot on importing to actually sustain the populations. What then does this report say, and how then does it assist, given that Botswana, like I said, is one of those countries that's heavily reliant on imports?
Yes, so the report is clear that given that we have a surplus, and these are key countries is Zambia and South Africa, who are also neighboring countries to Botswana. So the situation is not bad. I think the ability of Botswana to import food from South Africa and Zambia, in this case, should be strengthened. The only worrying thing that the report has highlighted is the trade disruptions that have come because of the COVID restrictions in almost all these countries. As you could tell, the logistics supply chain processes in the entire region have slowed down. I mean, to import something is taking longer than usual. And I think this is where we would want to recommend that authorities that are responsible for importation of food, for example, in Botswana, should be more proactive this year, because you're looking at a year where there's deficit in most countries, but there's a regional surplus. So there'll be higher demand. You know, probably Zambia and South Africa is being quoted by so many countries now to try and import what they have as a surplus. So they need to be proactive to import this food on time, knowing that also the delivery periods could be very long given the COVID-19 situations.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I would like to start with you, Director. In terms of governments, what is the one thing that they should look at in terms of improving the situations that we are in at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be, the governments, they have to be calm. That is the first thing. You know, we are talking about food insecurity and COVID at the same time, and these multiply the effects, and you can be unsettled to address these issues. I think whatever we have as strategies that exist, that were well thought for food, to address the issue of food insecurity, we have to strengthen them. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, because things have been well thought. If you look, for example, the implementation of the Malabo Declaration, we are in all the commitments, the 7 commitments for the Malabo Declaration, the SADC region is behind. So we are not implementing what we have agreed. So I think we have to really look careful to the existing strategies, to the National Agriculture Investment Policy, and really recommit and move forward. The issue of COVID, as it was indicated by my colleague, it is mainly in terms of movement of goods, and the member states, they have addressed the strategies to address those challenges. It's now the stage of implementing and increasing communication among member states, so that we work as a group, as a community, for the benefit of our people and our society.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Motswana wetso e bala ka tseleng tseng jalo puisenya rena mmele ikutlwetse re pota ka ha e be re garela thulaganyo ya rena ya moso wa gompieno.